Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Tony Gold. This is our preview of Fulham's match against Aston Villa on Saturday. And Tony's going to be there, and I'm going to get his thoughts on what he is feeling like before the match. We got a lot to talk about. I also have several issues in a section I call Cottage Talk talking points that we'll be going through. Before we go on any further, I also want to just give a shout out to two very good podcasts that I've been on in the past. One was the first time Fulham played the Villa Park podcast. I would highly recommend watching and listening to that podcast. And I was actually just on another podcast yesterday, the Villa Forever podcast. Highly recommend that as well. Great podcast talking about Aston Villa and previewing this match. You'll get a different perspective if you are a Fulham supporter. Definitely check out these podcasts. Okay. Mr. Gold, how are you doing?
I'm all good, Russ. Thanks very much. Yeah, all good. How are you?
I am good, my friend. I'm looking forward to talking about this match. I don't know how much I'm looking forward to the match because there's a lot of pressure on that for both teams. But I think it's also a good pressure because I was thinking about this the other day. I'm going to pose this to you. This has been a very interesting season. I called it the Forrest Gump season for Fulham because they're like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But the fact that you and I are still talking about a chance for Europe in May is something to think about. The fact that we're having the conversation is some kind of progress. But I want a lot more than just progress, Tony. So opening thoughts, my friend.
Yeah, well, it's got very interesting now because obviously with Tottenham and Man U getting results last night and looking, very close to making that final, it's going to open up a sixth spot in the Premier League for a Champions League spot, right? And we're eighth. If, and obviously it's a big if, Fulham win their remaining 4 games, they have a very outside chance of being in that mix. So they've still got a hell of a lot to play for us. I mean, it's a massive carrot that. But like you said, unfortunately, because of the inconsistencies that we've seen this season with us, like you say, we don't know what version of Fulham are going to rock up at Villa Park tomorrow. And unfortunately, the stats don't show us in a great light with our record at Villa Park. And we were talking about it off air before we came on. But Fulham have won just one of their last 20 league visits there, and records are there to be broken, Russ, and enough teams do it to us over the years, so hopefully we can rock up tomorrow. I don't care if we don't play well, just get the result.
Right, Tony, and that's a very good point because you and I have talked about this. We could go through and look back at how poorly Fulham played against Southampton, especially in the first half. Does it really matter? All that truly mattered was the fact that they got the 3 points, right? Same thing here. I don't care how they do it. I don't care if Aston Villa, that there's a red card for Aston Villa. I don't care. I'm not going to marginalize any victory. I'm going to just applaud it if they get it done. And that's the bottom line. They need to get it done. This match is actually, there's so much pressure on both sides. It's funny because I'm hearing about all the pressure that's on Aston Villa. There's a ton of it because they're trying to get in the Champions League. But there is just as much, I feel, for Fulham because we've not been in Europe since 2011, since I started Cottage Talk. That's the last time we were in Europe. That tells you how long it's been. So there's pressure on Fulham as well. So that's what makes this, I guess you could say for the neutral, 12:30 start in England. I think that is going to be enticing for anyone to watch that follows the Premier League because I think this is going to be a match that everyone's going to want to watch, Tony.
It's definitely the game to watch tomorrow for sure because of what's at stake. I think it's going to be very tentative. Both teams will be nervous, obviously, and rightly so. The form guide shows, obviously, in the last 6 games, Villa, other than the result against Newcastle, which was really out of the blue for them, they had won 5 games straight. Fulham have been a bit yo-yo-y, win one, lose one, win one, lose one, so on and so forth. So, listen, it's in Fulham's hands. You know that they've got the opportunity. It's not like they're relying on anybody else. They have to rock up tomorrow, Russ. They have to be positive, and they have to start with the energy and tempo and the work ethic, all the things that we saw against Liverpool at home. That is the Fulham that needs to rock up tomorrow. It has to.
See, that's
Nothing else.
where I'm going. I totally agree, Tony, because when we talk about which Fulham's going to show up, if the club that played against Liverpool shows up, then Fulham are going to pull off this upset. I'm going to call it an upset. It would be an upset to win at Villa Park. Yeah. So if that's the team that shows up, we've got a really good chance of getting all 3 points. If it's the team that showed up in the second half against Chelsea, they're not winning anything. So which team is going to show up? The team that beat Newcastle twice got a chance, right? The team that beat Nottingham Forest, we got a chance. The team that drew with Southampton at home, no way. The team that drew away, no way. Fulham perspective.
Yeah, it's again, as I said, there are. At the end of the day, we know that Silva needs to make sure that he gets his team selection spot on. Needs to set it up right. We know what Villa's strengths are. The good news is obviously Rashford. It looks like Rashford's out,
yep.
Which is good. But Ollie Watkins is more than capable, as we know. So it's going to come down to us winning our individual battles, defending well. Got to defend our 18-yard box much better than we have done. And the players will be up for it. There's no doubt about it. But it's whether or not they can, turn that into, what is required to get the result, which is ultimately, if we can get ahead and then, look to hold on to that and do whatever needs to be done to get the result.
Okay, very good. All right, before we go on any further, I want to mention that this show is being broadcasted live. Video on Facebook, on X, and also on YouTube. The podcast version is exclusive to Cottage Talk Patreon paid members. So if you want to listen to it, you're going to have to join the Cottage Talk Patreon page. But if you want to watch it, obviously you can watch it live or watch a replay of it. Okay. Tony, let's get to the show. I have 3 Cottage Talk talking points that I want to go through with you. Actually, more than that, a few more. There's a Goldman for you. I have several talking points. Let's start with this one to get us going, okay? So this just happened. The club announced season ticket prices. It's a 2.8% increase for 2025, 2026 this season, okay? Next season. So here's the thing. I want to get your thoughts on it. The Fulham Supporters Trust have posted their statement on it. I'm going to share my view on it, and then I want to get yours. At first blush, you're thinking, well, that's not that bad, right? It's not that bad. It's a very small increase. Here's the issue I have with the fact that they've increased it at all. Why not a freeze, Tony? This is where I'm going on this. They don't need to be raising ticket prices every single year. And a 2.8% increase is going to do very little to help Fulham in their quest next season. It's not going to do much. So why not do something positive and freeze the pricing for a year? I work at a business that doesn't increase rates every single year. They do it every couple of years, and there's a reason for it. Because if you do it every year, you're going to upset people. And in this case, there's really no reason for it, Tony. If you're going to raise it, then raise it significantly. I don't want them to do that at all. Let me say that. But to do this, there's no reason for it. This should have been a freeze.
Yeah, it's obviously a topic that everyone is talking about. It seems to have divided opinion across the supporters and the fan base. Some supporters are quite happy with it and have accepted it, and others, good evening, Chris, and others are not. My stance on it, Russ, is that by increasing it by 2.8%, what are the club really going to make out of it. When you think about the balloon payments that they get from the Premier League and all the other
Right.
endorsements and money that's coming in, they're only really making a very small, margin. And I like the fact that I like the fact when they made their statement that they said that the club recognises and respects that financial challenges can impact both supporters and organisations. Well, yes, it can, and it has done all season. The reason why myself and my son, didn't renew our season tickets is because, we can't always go on a Saturday because of other commitments. My son plays football. I've got commitments as well in non-league, and it's very difficult, and I can't justify, getting tickets for that. And then when tickets do come out, they're charging 50 quid for an 18-year-old to go and watch football. It's just not reality, Russ, ultimately. And so, look, at the end of the day, the club will do what they do because they have the power, and they know that they can make these increases because they will always get those tickets sold, because there's always tourists out there or people that want to go along. But, Fulham hasn't been sold out once this season. There have always been empty seats. There's always been seats around. They're not selling it out. So ultimately, as I say, there will be supporters that are happy with it. In my opinion, I agree with you, Russ, entirely. They should have freezed it. Absolutely should have freezed it. That was probably the right thing to do. Because, as I said, at the end of the day, what are Fulham gaining from it? Really, at the end of the day, what are they gaining?
Right. And listen, I can use what has happened here with some of my teams, and I'll use the Patriots, who have some of the most expensive ticket prices in North American sports. Honestly, they do. But even I'm talking about the New England Patriots, have put freezes on ticket prices from season to season. They're not doing it each and every season. And I understand why, because there's no reason to do it every single season. And sometimes I think fans actually really appreciate it when they don't do it. So even from a little bit of a PR, just freeze it, because you're not gaining anything from it this season. Do something right. I think the right thing would have been to freeze it, Tony. Give back. Because
what was the increase, Russ? It's £1 per game, I think I read somewhere. £1
so
per
what's that going to do?
Exactly.
What's
it's
that
not
going
like
to do?
it's going to make the money available to make a marquee signing, is it? I mean, let's be honest. It's pittance in the grand scheme of things. Like I said, at the end of the season, what will Fulham get for finishing, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, whatever it is, that 100 million, something like that, something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to share this comment here.
It's very hard.
Right. And listen, I understand the thoughts of Fulham supporters. Listen, I'm not there, so my voice is probably not one that really has much clout, because I'm not there. I'm not the one who's spending the money. You are, Tony, and the supporters. So I can't be there, but I can also voice my thoughts to back the supporters here, because I have spent so much money on tickets for other sporting events in my life. And I always have appreciated when the ticket prices have not gone up, and they've just stayed the same. And in this case, this doesn't benefit Fulham Football Club. And I just think that they should have done nothing, and they would have been looked at in a different light than doing this small little increase. Like I said, it's almost like, well, we're going to do it for the sake of doing it. There's no reason to do it. There's absolutely no reason to do it. You could have waited another season to do it, but they did, and they're going to have to live with that. But my opinion is they didn't need to do this. All right, let's move on, my friend. Let's go to another talking point. And this is an interesting one, because reportedly Jedi is available for the match on Saturday. So here is the question. If he is going to play, should he play? Now, you and I talked about this on a prior episode, so I'm going to pose it to you this way. I understand the player wants to play, and they're going to, if he's available and he can play, the idea is, well, if you're available, you can play. But here's the bigger question. What version of Jedi are we getting, Tony? We've seen Jedi, you can tell that he's not at 100%. So what is acceptable for Fulham? Jedi at 50%, 40%? Is that good enough for Jedi and also for the club? What is best? Because I'm just going to throw out a number. If he's 70% of Jedi at this point because of what he's dealing with, I give him a lot of credit for doing everything he can for Fulham Football Club. But the question is, what can he actually give? 70%, okay. If he's only at 50%, I don't know if I would play him, Tony. That's where I'm going on it. I want to get your thoughts on this. Like I said, it looks like he could be available. The question is, do you play him? And what version of Jedi are you getting?
In my opinion, Russ, for this game, because of what the magnitude of what's at stake here, you need prime Jedi. You need Jedi 100%, not 90%, not 80%, not even 85% fit, Chris. You need him at 100%. He's been off it, prior to the injury, obviously, and missing the last game. He was struggling, and defensively, I think that showed. We can't have him being 70% fit tomorrow and playing, because that's gonna hurt us. I don't think it's going to help us at all. I'd rather stick with 100% Ryan Sessegnon going back in there, doing a job, and then having 100% player, that's fit. You've got to have players that are 100% right and ready and physically able, because Villa will pick holes and take advantage of any weakness that you have, and we cannot afford to carry him. So if he's not 100% fit, then I wouldn't have him involved.
Okay. I'm going to throw out a scenario and I want to give the guys from Fulham a lot of credit. They brought this to the table. What if you played Castagna as a left back? He's done this for his country, played him at left back, and then have Tete as your right back. Then you could still have Sessegnon playing as a winger. Would you consider that?
Not a chance.
Okay.
Not a chance. I mean, Castagna struggled on the right. Imagine what he's going to do on the left with no left foot. No, that would be a disaster. And we've got enough wide players, Russ, to easily, comfortably be okay in that position.
This is true.
Honestly, we really have. I just think that, and also I think Sess is a better defender. I genuinely do. I think he's a better defender. And look, for all the great things that Robinson gives you, going forward, sometimes his defending is really poor. He gets caught out positionally so many times.
Yep.
And yeah, I just think that he has to be 100% because of the way he plays and because of how much energy he gives the team. It's not that. It's just I think that at the end of the day, your players have to be 100%. Especially look, if it was a mid-table game with nothing on it, then we'll do whatever. But this is a huge game for the club tomorrow. It is a huge game. So
it is.
Have to be.
No, listen, that's why I wanted to bring this up, Tony, because I think it's a question that if I'm over here and we're doing a talk show about Boston sports, this is what they'd be talking about. That's why we need more talk about situations like this, where you got Jedi, a player at 100%, Tony. I'm all for it. I said even 70%, but I understand why you went with 100% because there's so much on the match. What is better for Fulham Football Club? That's the question. And that's something that we're going to have to see when Marco makes this decision. But I do find this one something to watch, especially when we see the starting 11. I want to go back. I want to share this comment from Benjamin Berg going to our first talking point. It says, I think that the club is trying to phase out season ticket holders. Salary tours bring in more revenue. I want to get your thoughts on that, Tony.
Yeah, Benjamin makes a very good point. And you know what? It's what I would like to see, Russ, is I would like to see that Riverside stand packed. I'd like to see that Riverside stand absolutely packed to the rafters, every seat filled, because it's embarrassing when you turn up to a home game and all you see is empty seats lying around, because people will not pay. I don't care whether you're Fulham, whatever, you're not going to pay those prices, especially when Fulham are so inconsistent, Russ. When you turn up, you don't know what you're going to get from one week to the next. So honestly, I think Fulham are missing a trick. I really do. But Benjamin makes a very good point. Nothing winds me up more when I'm at Fulham and I see these half and half scarves, right? Supporters
Oh,
wearing these half and half scarves. I saw it the other time. Fulham Chelsea, Russ. Fulham
okay. That's
Chelsea, half
crazy,
and
by the way.
half scarves.
That's
Are you
crazy.
mad? Are you mad? Turning up to a Fulham with a half. I mean, the game's gone. So, Fulham have got to start realizing that there is generations of kids now that love this football club,
Yeah.
and they are being starved of the opportunity to go because the prices are pricing them out, and it's going to catch up with them at some point. It will catch up with them, and these kids will end up going to Chelsea or Brentford or wherever because it will be more beneficial for them
Right.
financially. So it's a really tricky one. But as I said, at the end of the day, Fulham will do whatever they want to do because they know at the end of the day they can get rid of the tickets or flog them on because, like Benjamin says, there's always tourists out there that will come and watch the club. And if they sign
Right.
a foreign player next season or from a specific country, then suddenly you're going to have an influx of foreigners that will want to come and watch it. So
Right.
yeah, it's a tricky one.
It is, and I can attest to this because I know many people that went over for, say, Patriots games, and who do they end up going to see? They want to go see a Premier League match. They come to Craven Cottage. Okay, they know nothing about the sport. They just want to see a Premier League game. That is something that the Cons can actually take advantage of, and they have. And that to me is their prerogative. Going down to a little Bobby Brown, my prerogative. But you know what? I want them to put the supporters first and the tourists second. Why are you increasing the pricing by anything this season? And why are you not trying to take care of the people that have stood by this club, which are the supporters, especially anyone that wants to go to a match should be able to go to a match affordably. And I just wish that they would come to their senses in some ways and come to some kind of compromise. And I think a good move would have been, and I'll say it one last time, then we'll move on. I know I keep going back to this. A freeze would have been the right move. And maybe next season they'll consider that situation. All right, Tony, let's move on. Another talking point. This is an unfortunate one. We talked about this last week. It looks highly unlikely that Rodrigo Muniz will return this season for Fulham. I've already noticed a dip from the club. I think they've been affected by this because now they have to depend on Raul Jimenez. And you and I have talked about this. I don't know how much he can give you right now because I think he, as we have said many times, I think he's already ran his race. So how much can you depend on Jimenez in a match? 45 minutes? 60 minutes? Less than that? Less than 45 minutes? That's the unfortunate situation that Fulham are in. And honestly, Tony, and I want to give the Fulhamish guys a lot of credit. We need more talk like this. Maybe it's time to think outside the box. They did mention, how about playing Traore up front? That was your suggestion too. They have to figure out a different plan B for the striker position. It certainly is not going to be Vinicius. That is the wrong decision, in my opinion. This is a loss, Tony. Let's talk about what this means.
Yeah, it's a major blow. I mean, if the talk is right, and then he's certainly out for tomorrow. But if he's out for the rest of the season, it's a major problem for Fulham. Major problem. But you know what? We have an under-21 squad, Russ, and we have an under-21 squad for a reason, because there are up-and-coming, hungry young players playing in that and playing very well by all accounts, right?
Right.
So there's a certain Callum Osmond, yep, that's doing very, very well for the under-21s. Get him on the bloody bench, right, as a backup, and give the kid an opportunity with 4 games to go. Throw him in. I don't want to see Vinicius on the bench. I don't want to see Vinicius coming off the bench, coming on. The guy's finished, hopeless, right? Get Callum Osmond on the bench and give him a chance. If Raul's blown after 70 minutes or whatever, get the young lad on and let him have a go. Got nothing to lose, honestly. And that would be my take on it, Russ, honestly.
Okay. And I could also give everyone a name that's going to upset everyone because I'm going to bring it up because I'm still angry about this because they've done nothing with the money. Jay Stansfield would look pretty good right now, Tony.
Huh, not half, not half. But look, you make your bed, right? And that old adage. So it is what it is. It's unfortunate. Muniz will be a miss because we know that
Yeah.
Raul hasn't got the legs to get through 90 minutes. But like I said, what's the benefit of bringing Vinicius on? Why not throw the young, hungry lion onto the football pitch and just let him have a go for 15, 20 minutes? He's not going to do any worse than Vinicius, right? He's just not. No. So give him a chance.
I totally agree, Tony. There's nothing to lose if you were to do that. Everything to gain, nothing to lose. But I don't think they're going to do that, and that's unfortunate. All right, my friend, let's get into this. We're going to start by talking about this match, by talking about Aston Villa. And I've mentioned this before. I've been very impressed with Aston Villa. They're dealing with a lot. It kind of reminds me of, again, it's different situations. But when you're in Europe and you are also in the FA Cup, you really have a lot to do, many matches, and it can affect your season in the Premier League. But that does not change the fact that this is a very good side, Tony. It's an excellent side. I would rather watch Aston Villa play than watch Nottingham Forest play, than Newcastle United. I rate Villa over those two sides, and I'll even say Chelsea too. I rate them better, but they're where they are right now. The table doesn't lie, but I think there are factors that go along with it. They are a club that really should be in a Champions League spot. I truly believe that. I said that last night on the Villa Forever podcast. I believe that because I rate them very highly. However, they're currently on a little bit of a slide. So the question really is, does that benefit Fulham or hurt Fulham?
Look, they have one of the best managers in the Premier League, in my opinion. Tactically, he's up there with some of the best managers in the game, is the honest truth. I think he's a tremendous manager, reads the game very well. He's got Villa very structured, very organised. They are, they've got strength in pretty much every position. They work incredibly hard. Last week would have really hurt them, Russ. That defeat against Palace at Wembley would have really hurt them, because I think there was no one that was, that would have envisaged that happening or even predicted that happening. So they're coming off the back of that disappointment. It could work in Fulham's favour. That defeat could, set the players back. But you'd like to think with the strength of character that they have in their team that they'll want to bounce back very quickly. But yeah, like Chris says, right, absolutely bang on the nail there, that they will be under pressure to win the game, because they're also still fighting for, as you say, Champions League, especially if it opens up to sixth spot. So they are very much in the running. So yeah, look, it's not going to be easy. As I said, they will be hurting and they will want a response, and it's down to Silva and Fulham to ensure that doesn't happen.
Right, and I totally agree with that, Tony. And I'm glad that you already mentioned Emery, and we're going to talk about both him and Silva now, because this is a matchup that I think that I've watched in recent years where I think Emery has won the coaching battle. And I spoke to the Villa Park podcast, about 5 or 6 months ago. And they basically laid it out to me that Emery has plan A, B, C, and D during a match, and he changes it often during a match. And I actually like a manager that is not afraid to change when things aren't working, and then just goes through his progression of changes to get the right mix for his team. He's always thinking, I need to fix this. I love a manager that does that. Emery does that. Marco's a little bit different, but Marco's game plans are usually excellent. The question is, will he be able to respond when Emery goes through his changes, Tony? This is, I think, going to be a key part of this match beyond the players playing I think it could also come down to the managers. I want to get your thoughts.
A lot of it, Russ, tomorrow is gonna be on how both managers set up in terms of their team selection, in terms of what they're going to be asking the players to do offensively and defensively. For me, I think other than for Villa, other than the goalkeeper who is world class, he's up there with the top five goalkeepers in the Premier League. I think defensively is where Fulham could really cause them problems. Could
I
really
agree.
get one of our strengths is our attacking, forward line, and I think one of Villa's deficiencies is their defence. So tomorrow, as I said to you, many times, is that it's going to be about who defends the best. Basically, I mean, it's not rocket science, but it's going to be, who's going to step up defensively and keep stop the ball from getting into the 18-yard box or going into the goal, and that's really what it's going to come down to. And I think Marco Silva needs to be very clear about what he wants from our back four and how he wants the players in front of the back four to play when we're out of possession of the ball.
Right.
So I expect us to be a lot tighter, a lot more solid, and very difficult to play through. I would think he's going to encourage Villa to go and play wide.
That's what I think.
To try and keep us, to keep them from sort of getting at us down the middle. And obviously, two of our players are going to be massive in that respect. But look, I think it's a very intriguing battle between two very, very good managers.
I totally agree, Tony. And I think that this is something that it'll start with the decisions with the starting 11s for both sides, and then it'll just continue throughout the match. And listen, we saw Marco really adjust, well, sorry, Chris, to Arne Slot's decisions when he changed the match. But then when Maresca made changes with Chelsea, Marco did not make the right decisions. So this is interesting. It's fascinating. But I know he'll have Fulham set up to win the match. The question is, can they? And that's going to lead us to talk about how does Fulham win the match? And this brings us right there, talking about the managers. So this is what I think, and then I want to go to you, Tony, because I want to get your thoughts on how you think Fulham need to play this. I think you already touched on it. This is about playing well defensively. It's being defensively sound and beating this team on the counter for me. Setting yourself up and getting ready for the chance to break, and you got to be lethal on the break. You have to be clinical. But I don't think this is going to be a match. I think what's interesting here is that when they played at Craven Cottage, when Fulham are home, they want to be the one who is going to be carrying the play. This is going to be in reverse, and I think it suits Fulham better. We've talked about this many times. Fulham are better when they're not favored. Fulham are better when they can play on the counter. That's the two scenarios we have here with this match at Aston Villa. They are better as the underdogs. They are certainly better on the counter. This is a match where they, again, their weaknesses, Tony, has been the defense, just like Aston Villa. They cannot make any mistakes defensively. They can't have any gaffes. If I'm Villa, and if you're a fan of Aston Villa, I'm targeted Joachim Anderson. That's what I would do, because I think that's a weakness for Fulham right now. But I think that this is about the counter-attacking game, Tony, and being solid in your shape.
So absolutely, spot on. I think that you're looking at game changers tomorrow, Russ. You're looking at individuals that are going to come up with a moment of brilliance.
Right.
That's going to win the game. And unfortunately, for Fulham, Aston Villa have 3 or 4 of those kind of players.
They do.
Right. Tillemans, always a danger. We've got to make sure that we don't give him any space, any time. Set pieces are going to be crucial. That they can't give away silly free kicks in and around our box. Rodgers, he's a player that's definitely grown this season and is always a problem, because what he does so well is he's got great energy. He breaks lines. He gets in behind. He always finds that space and utilizes it very well. So again, we're going to have to be really switched on to that. And then they've got the world class in Asensio. That guy is on a different level. He's so technically good. And he's another one that can come up with a moment of brilliance. And then they've got the dog in there, the John McGinn, who, a lot of players don't like him, but I'm a big fan of his. I think he is absolutely crucial to how Villa play. So look, it's they've got the class. There's no doubt about it. But we know, Russ, that if the Fulham that we know and we've seen a lot this season turns up, the one that beat Chelsea, the one that beat Liverpool, the one that beat Newcastle, the one that beat Forest, if that team turns up and plays to its potential, then they're going to cause Villa a lot of problems as well.
Right.
A lot of problems. But we need the Smith Rowes. We need the Traores. We need the Williams. We need to turn up and have a moment of brilliance to go and win us the game. And that's the difference.
I agree with that, Tony. That's going to lead us to talk about the starting 11. This is going to be fascinating because I'm not exactly sure how Marco is going to play this. I believe he will play with a flat back four. I truly believe that. So I'm not going to really mention formations. I don't think he's going to play three at the back. I can't imagine he would do that. I think he's going to play a flat back four. So I'm going to give you first crack at this. What would you do? And then I'll share what I would do. And then we can then discuss what we think Marco is going to do.
Okay, what I would do is I would go with Leno. I would go with Sess at left back, Anderson, Bassi, Tete. I would bring Lukic back in, 100% back in with Berger in midfield. I'd go Smith Rowe, come back in, just in front.
Okay.
Raul up front. I'd have Iwobi, and I'd have Traore.
Okay. That actually sounds very good, Tony. And it's funny because now that you said that, I'm trying to think of a counter to what you were just going to say. The only thing that I was just thinking about was the situation with Jedi. But you know what? If you set it up the way that you set it up with Iwobi on one side and Traore on the other side, and you have Sessegnon as your left back, I like that. So I'm going to agree with your starting 11. I'm going to go with you. Now let's talk about what we think Marco will do. I think, in my opinion, if he's fit to play, I think he's going to play Jedi.
Completely agree. I think if Robinson is even, as you say earlier, 75% fit, he will start him. And what he'll do is he'll push Sessegnon up to the left, right? He'll keep Iwobi on the right. Raul will start, obviously. It's heads or tails whether he goes with Smith Rowe or Pereira. My head says he's going to stick with Pereira, but honestly, I think Smith Rowe has to play tomorrow, Russ. If we want to get anything out of the game, I think he has to play. And he has to bring Lukic back in. He has to. I can't see him not.
Okay, very good. All right. Tony, let's get to predicting this match. I've already made my prediction. I did this on the Villa Forever podcast. So if you're watching live, and we have a good amount of people, real good amount of people watching live, if you want to share your prediction for the match, please feel free to. Tony, you're going to be there. What's your prediction?
That's a disaster, me going, because every time I go, it's a bloody disaster.
No, let's hope not. Let's hope not. Let's hope that you are a lucky charm. Let's hope you're a lucky charm this time.
I want to be positive. I want us to get there. I want us to go and get a result. But everything is stacked against us. Everything. Okay. And I genuinely, if I'm looking at it completely objectively,
yes, be objective.
I can't see how Fulham win this game tomorrow.
Okay.
I can't see us keeping a clean sheet, and just based on how it's been away from home in recent weeks, I don't know. I'm going Villa 2, Fulham 1. Unfortunately,
okay.
That's how I see it.
That's fine, Tony, and I can definitely understand why you're going there, because if you look at it, not just on paper, but if you look at how the season's gone, if you look at both teams and you look at the talent discrepancy, let's be honest, Aston Villa are a much more talented side. They have more talent.
But also, Russ, they haven't lost at home. They haven't lost at home since October.
I'm glad that you brought that up. I was going to bring that up too. You're right.
It's just everything stacked against us. But you know what? there has to come a time when Fulham change that, and maybe, hopefully, this is the time, and maybe they'll go and do it. Hopefully,
I hope so, Tony. But like you said, I certainly respect anyone that says, you know what, Aston Villa, because everything screams Aston Villa. I'm sure most of the predictions going to be an Aston Villa victory. I understand that. But I'm going to go back to what I've said throughout this season, why I call it the Forrest Gump season for Fulham, because you don't know what you're going to get. What if they pull off? Actually, I could even say the first time that they played Liverpool. Yes, Chris is listening. He can attest to this. I know that they had Andy Robertson sent off, but we pushed Liverpool to the brink at Anfield. We beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. We beat Newcastle at St. James's Park. Tony, I could keep going on. How about beating Nottingham Forest at home? They've been able to do this. The Arsenal match recently, obviously not great, but they still were in it. Unfortunately, it just was too little too late. But they were in it at the end. They didn't play great, but they were in it in the end. So that's going to lead to my prediction. And anyone that knows me, that has watched Cottage Talk for all these years, knows how optimistic I am. So yes, you're right. I'm going for a Fulham victory, 2-1. That doesn't mean anything because my predictions aren't usually the greatest. But sometimes I hit. And for everyone's sake that's a Fulham supporter, I hope I get this one right. 2-1 to Fulham. That's what I'm going to go with, Tony. Let me see if I got any predictions. What's interesting, I've got. Let's see what our friend Chris says. He says, "Wow, he's going Fulham 3, Villa 2."
Okay. I never leave a game early, never, even if we're losing 5-0. So, Chris, if that comes in, mate, I'm buying you a pint or two.
Okay, we got 1-1, and I certainly understand the 1-1 draw.
I'll take the 1-1. I'll take the 1-1.
Okay, but you know what? Like I said, this season has been so unpredictable because that's who Fulham are. They're unpredictable, Tony. The only thing that's predictable about them is that they're unpredictable. You know, that you just don't know what to expect. Every time I go in there thinking that, I was so optimistic going into that Chelsea game. Very optimistic. You and I talked about this. I'm like, this is their moment. They're going to do the double over Chelsea. And for a half, I almost was going to be right. And then they flipped the switch and we couldn't flip it back. And then you had the capitulation, that crap at the end, and it ended badly. But even if you look at that, they were still in it. And I never felt that Chelsea were by far the better side or whatever, and then, we could go back to that Liverpool match at Craven Cottage. And I know Chris is watching, and Liverpool walked the league. Let's say what it is. They've destroyed teams this season. They've been the best team in the Premier League. And they came to Craven Cottage and they lost. There's always a chance, Tony. 2-1 to Fulham. I'm sticking with it. I'm going 2-1 to Fulham. All right. Great show as always, man. This has been a lot of fun. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing on Cottage Talk is basically talking about the club in a way that I don't hear talk about. I always say this. There aren't enough shows talking Fulham. We got a bunch of podcasts. They're all doing great jobs. But the media do nothing. Next to nothing. There are some that are doing some good things talking Fulham, but there just isn't enough of it. So for me, this is important to do. And Tony, I've enjoyed this show. Final thoughts to you.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. Love it. Thank you. Final thoughts. Look, it will be amazing if we can get something from the game tomorrow. It really will. And I said, if anything, this season it's been unpredictable. So trying to, predict things, it often comes back and bites you, right, and kicks you in the mouth. So look, ultimately, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I'd love to be proved wrong. And I'd love to see a vintage Fulham performance and us being able to roll onto Everton at home, next week, and then, narrow it down to 3 games to go and still be in the mix. So look, they are capable, Russ. We know they are capable. And it's on them tomorrow. It's on them. It's on Marco Silva. And let's just hope he and they turn up and at least have a go. Like I said, I don't care about, I just want us to have a go. I want us to be
Yeah.
positive. I want us to show and have intent. And if we can do that, then we have got every, chance of getting a result, because we have shown that we can do it this year. The reason why Liverpool have won the league is because they haven't necessarily been the best side, but what they have been is the most consistent side
That's
over,
right.
Games. And so ultimately, that is where Fulham have really let themselves down this season. They just have not been consistent enough.
Okay. Chris is getting his Fulham Everton prediction. Chris, give it to me now then. So we can end
we
that
know
way.
where that's going, Russ, don't we?
I know where that's going. That's why I want him to share it. Okay. I definitely want him to share it. I actually have respect for this Everton podcast that I've done several times. They're good guys, but I'm sure Chris is going to give us a positive Fulham prediction. I'm just waiting for him to give it to us before we sign off, because I need something positive before we go. So come on, Chris, give it to me. Okay, Chris, come on, Chris. Give me something realistic. Come on, Chris. Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Chris. I really appreciate it. Chris.
That would be great for our goal difference, Russ.
It would. That would actually be a big help. Thank you, Chris, for the prediction. But I don't see that happening. I do feel good about the Everton match, but one match at a time. We have this match, and unfortunately, you and I were talking to him. My final thoughts involve the situation that Fulham are under. Okay. Unfortunately, there's another club near Fulham that I can't stand that is now in the mix. So now you have 4 teams in the mix. Let's call it what it is. So it's going to come down to the wire. But as you said this, Tony, and I truly believe this, it's in Fulham's hands. Take care of business. If they do what they can do and get as many points as possible, that's all I can ask for. And if they win all 4 matches and aren't in Europe, there's something wrong. So that's the point that I think we're making here, is that they have it in their control some way. They are dealing with other teams, but where they are right now, if they hold serve and just get maximum points, they should be in Europe. But we shall see. Again, there's so many other factors. But for me, I've enjoyed this season a great deal. I'm just glad I've not had a heart attack or anything like that. I shouldn't say that, but it's just been one of those seasons that has been crazy. And I'll just end by saying this, that we've said during the show, Tony, that I've said this to you. The fact that you and I are having a discussion about Europe, and it's May 2nd, is something that is actually kind of special. But I don't want just something. I want a lot more than that. And that's how I will end this show. I want to be in Europe. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. As you can imagine, we're going to have a lot of talk after the match, and we'll bring that to you. And I want to thank everyone that has watched live as we're about to sign off. We have 204 people, Tony, watching live with us. Amazing. So we got a nice size audience. I want to thank everyone that has watched and listened to Cottage Talk all these years. I started this in 2011, and I'm going strong. And now I'm reinvigorated. I was thinking about giving it up last year, and now I can't see a time when I'm ever going to stop doing it, because I love it so much. And I feel there's a need for as much talk about Fulham as possible, and I'm going to continue to give it to you. All my co-hosts, we're going to give it to you, and we're going to give you a lot more next season. That's a tease for what's coming up soon. Anyways, well, that's going to do it for this episode. He's Tony Gold. I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.